sim racing chassis provided by Next Level Racing. Check them out at nextlevelracing.com.
Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and our live review of Dirt Rally. The very first time we're doing a live review, and we're going to see how this works. I'm John Sable, and joining me today on my left, other way, is Darin Ganji.
Hey everybody.
And on my right is Billy Strange.
How's it going?
So, a few things before we get going. As you see, quality-wise, isn't going to be like the most amazing show. Billy's out in the boonies, on Boonies internet, so he's a little pixelated, but we can still hear him coming loud and clear, so that's what really matters. And then, also, we have you guys live in chat. We're not going to be answering any questions during the show, and in general, going to be trying to ignore the chat. But at the end of the show, if you have any questions or comments, put them down there and we'll try to get to them. So, with that said, let's roll into Dirt Rally and a little bit of a primer here. So, Dirt Rally is from Codemasters, and it's a follow-up to their 2011 title, Dirt 3, which was a little more on the arcade side. And in April 2015, Codemasters announced Dirt Rally on Steam Early Access. That was in April 2015. And it kind of got announced and released the exact same day. And when it was announced, Codemasters said they wanted to take a new strategy where they wanted to be more sim-focused and really wanted to get the input of the community during the development of the game. And they did just that, and in December of 2015, version 1.0 was released on Steam. And then this past April, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and PC box edition of the title was released. So for this review, we're going to go through 9 different categories to rate the title. We're going to talk about cars, tracks, graphics, sounds, online racing, offline racing, quality assurance, which is essentially a fancy way of saying is it buggy or not, and then physics. And in all those categories, we're going to give it a star rating out of 5 stars, with 5 stars being near perfection, since very little is perfection, 4 stars being that it's good, 3 stars being it's okay, 2 stars meaning that it's kind of bad. And if you get 1 star in a category or overall, then essentially it's just broken. So, sorry about that. So, with that out of the way now, let's get to these categories. And first up is the cars category. And we'll start with Darin. And Darin, what do you think about the cars of Dirt Rally?
I think they did a great job as far as the quantity, the modeling, the interiors all look great. I really don't have any complaints. I think they did a great job as far as the balance goes from like historic or older rally cars, rally cross, hill climb. So there's a great variety, great modeling, and again, I really like the interiors. So now I'm going to hand it over to Billy.
Yeah, I'm going to mirror, pretty much what you said. You got 46 cars that cover a wide variety in the rally genre. The hill climb cars, we could use a few more of those, but that's nitpicking. I'm not going to hold it against it. It would just be nice. Car setup, in my opinion, could be a little more in depth as to maybe tire pressures, different tire choices, maybe some telemetry after you make a run so you can make some adjustments. And there's no like skin editor or anything like that that you can make different liveries with. But all in all, it still is a really nice wide breadth of cars, and they look really good. They did a really good job.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pretty much echo a lot of what Darin and Billy already said. I think overall the cars are a strong suit of Dirt Rally. I think they look great. I love just all the all the generations of cars that you have, 60s, 70s, early 2000s, modern rally. I think it's just a really good collection. I think the damage model on the cars is pretty good. I think there's sometimes maybe they let you get away with a little more than you should, but overall I think it's really cool that you can blow a tire and have to run around like that. You can smash up windshields. So I think overall I do a pretty good job, and just good selection, and yeah, overall I think it's well done.
And do you guys have a favorite?
Billy first.
I really like the. I don't know. I like the hill climb cars. I'm not a fan of the Sebastian Loeb car. We'll get into that later, but I really enjoy the other three. The two Peugeots and the Audi. I said it, Peugeot.
Yeah, for me, I really love the early 2000s Subaru, the
That's my favorite.
WRX STI. I mean, that's just, I love it. Such a fun car. And also, I will say, I do of the modern cars. Not that early 2000s that old. I really do like the Volkswagen Polo, especially me owning a Golf. It's really fast. I think it's a lot of fun to drive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also like. I made a couple notes here real quick. I knew I had them. The Opel Manta, the Group B car. Once you get the hang of that, especially in the snow, that is a really fun car to run. And then the 205 in the Group B is also another fun car to run.
We're getting a Billy's mic is hot. Sounds fine on my end, but maybe it's coming through a little hot on the broadcast. Sorry for changing subject. But yeah, back to favorite cars. Mine is definitely that Subaru WRX. I like the whole. Again, I think there's a great variety of cars. So, but if I was only able to drive one, it'd probably be that. I think it was a 2001 Subaru WRX. So, anyway, what about scores? I gave it a 4 out of 5 in cars. John?
I gave it a 5 out of 5 because I think they're well done, and I like there's plenty of selection. Billy?
And I gave it a 4.
All right.
Okay. So it sounds like that averages to a score of 4 in that category. And I didn't mention it before. We're just going to do a whole number of scores. We're not going to get into the decimal places and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to kind of come to agreement and roll with a whole number. So for the cars category, we give Dirt Rally a 4. So next up, we're talking tracks. And Billy, how about you start for this one? What do you think about the tracks of Dirt Rally?
I think the tracks themselves are done really well. I would have liked. It's kind of tough because what they've done is they've broken down. It seems like they've broken down really long stages. So there's 6 of them in different, 6 areas, and they've broken them down to where you can do a 3-minute, a 5-minute, 7-minute run. But you're kind of doing the same parts over and over again. So I would have liked to have seen more. It's a little bit on the nitpicky side, but I would have liked to have seen more. I also put that they had nice, like side, track details, the crowds, and it makes you kind of feel like you're really there. Yeah, the environment. Thank you. That they feel like, or makes you feel like you're there. So they did a good job with that. And then the signposts are made out of like titanium. It's a little odd. And then the placement of spectators every once in a while is a little conspicuous. And I know that's to keep you from cutting the course, typically. But I thought that was a little odd. So, well done. I just would have liked to see more.
Darin?
I pretty much agree with everything that Billy just said. There is a good variety as far as the lengths go, but like Billy said as well, you're basically going over a lot of the same sections. I would have liked to have seen more across the board, more asphalt, more gravel, more snow stages. I thought it'd be really cool if, and I don't know if this has happened yet. I haven't seen anything, but it'd be cool if dirt rally was moddable. Because like with Richard Burns Rally, which still has life, just about every type of stage imaginable has been created, and I would have liked to have seen that, or I would still like to see that ability. But there's as far as what there is in the game, they're challenging. They're not too wide, not too narrow as far as the width of the actual road. Because I know early on in some titles, WRC titles, people were complaining that things were just too wide, and I agree, they were. But I think some are really tight and really super challenging. But overall, I like Billy said, I like the environments a lot. I just would have liked to have seen more. John?
Yeah, and for me, instead of echoing what Billy and Darin said, I agree on pretty much all those points. And especially, I like that Billy brought up those titanium signposts, because it's like, this should be wood. I shouldn't destroy my car hitting this sign. So
can you imagine getting skewered with one of those, though? Like,
oh, yeah.
It just comes right through. There's that one video where that guy, it goes right through the front windshield. And it's just, that would have been really interesting to have something like that.
Yeah, need that added in a future update. But
right.
As far as the tracks, I do find them very enjoyable. I do find them very challenging. I prefer some more than others. Like, I really love Finland, even though I will say I do think some of the jumps are a little obnoxious. Like, I don't think they're as tall as they are in game in real life. And then there are some stages, like I think it's Germany for me is kind of one that's kind of a bit like, it's challenging. It's just I struggle to really find enjoyment from the layout, but it seems like it's staying true to real life, so I can't really knock it too much there. But my biggest complaint, and this will be reflected in my score, just not enough. I mean, you do kind of quickly end up going to the same places over and over again. Yes, you can mix and match stages, but it'd be nice to have more environments, more locations, and I feel like that's just the biggest lacking. Especially, I feel like there needs to be more rally locations. Hill climb, you just do a bunch of different versions of Pikes Peak, and then Rallycross, which I really enjoy, we only have 3 of them. So that's really my biggest complaint. I just want more.
Yep. Yeah, one of my favorites, funny you say you didn't like it as much, John, was Germany. And it was kind of funny to find that out, that it was, because initially I didn't really like a lot of the asphalt, and I guess it really varied from car to car, and we'll get to physics and talk about that. But in that video I did with the rear traction loss in the stage 4, I was at a Germany stage, and I specifically picked it because there was a lot of hairpin turns, and I loved it. I loved that layout, and there's a variety of layouts per country, and not all of them are great, but that was one of the ones I liked. I like the gravel stages, which are super challenging. The snow stages, again, are really challenging. I love when you go off the side of the road in the snow, and big puffs of snow go flying. So anyway, before we ramble on any further, why don't we get to our scores? Billy, what'd you give it?
I give it a 3.
I
John?
gave it a 3 as well, based off of
Same
more
here.
tracks.
Triple threes across the board. So we all gave it a 3 in tracks.
Okay, so with that done, let's move on to graphics. A little more of the sexier parts of the game. And Darin, how do you think the graphics reflect not only on the PC, because we're also reviewing this for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4?
Well, first off, having 60 frames a second on both the consoles was awesome. I was happily surprised that what I was looking at on the console looked just about as good as it did on the PC. And then you've got really high frames per second, or FPS, on the PCs, running triples with a lot of eye candy. So it seems to be really optimized really well. It looks great. Did get some odd artifacts in replays, but while driving, I didn't have any issues like that. I like the new field of view adjustments, so you can move yourselves forward and back, up and down, and then you have an overall field of view adjustment. I like that you can remove the virtual wheel. And in closing on the graphics for me, it needs true triple screen support. I would like to be able to adjust my outside monitors properly so you don't get any stretching. But other than that, I think they're great. Billy?
Yeah, it's really pretty. I've got most of the settings turned up pretty high, and on my ultra wide, I was still getting 90 to 110 frames a second. So it ran well. It seems, for the most part, pretty well optimized. The one thing that I'm kind of a stickler on is motion blur, and I know somebody had mentioned it, but I did not find a place to turn off the motion blur, because when you looked out your driver's side window, you could see it like do this little ghosting. It was very interesting style of motion blur. It kind of does this little ghosting that I didn't really care for. It's not that big a deal, but I always find motion blur to be kind of artificial, so that kind of bothers me. The FOV I felt could have been a little more detailed, as far as, it's hard to, when you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even though you have the adjustments for the seat, like you said, Darin, with the, up, down, back and forward kind of deal. The FOV I thought could have been a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just looking for those degrees, like what is my actual field of view? So that's a little hard to get used to. You kind of have to play with it a little bit. But as you said, you can get rid of the virtual wheel, which is nice. You also had that dash cam, which works really well, I think. The snow and the night driving portions look phenomenal. I was really surprised, especially when you drive at night in the snow. It looks really, really good. I thought they did a really good job for the lighting and the snow in those stages. And to wrap it up real quick, the PlayStation 4 looks fantastic. I was very surprised at how good and how well it runs. 60 frames a second. When I was doing all my editing stuff, it didn't drop one frame. It ran really well on the PS4. John?
Yeah, and for me, a lot of reiterating what those guys said. I agree. The snow effects really are just top notch. I agree that it was awesome to see during development in the Steam Early Access, because this was something that we even me and Darin asked for, was let's be able to move our field of view, let's be able to move our seats, let's make this a sim title and not have to race from the back seat of the cars and see a bunch of interior. And it was great that along with a lot of other items got listened to and got corrected. And so yeah, that was a big deal for me when it came to graphics. Graphics themselves, I think they're very good looking. They do have a little bit of kind of like, I would say, the Codemasters effects, where things can be like a little yellowish, and some of the lighting effects maybe aren't the most realistic. They're not bad, they're not far off, but they're not quite nailing it like some other titles out there are. And then yeah, lack of triple screen support is definitely a major pain point for me, especially having ultra wide monitors. A lot of stretch, but with that said, at least it's a rally title, so a lot of times I'm focused forward. Only like really becomes a nuisance if I'm racing rallycross. But again, I would love to see that updated. And lastly, Xbox One performance blew me away. I mean, it blew me away how good the graphics looked and how well it performed. And on Xbox One, which we know is the underpowered of the two consoles, I mean, it was a rock star on the Xbox. So, yeah, overall, very positive. A couple nitpicks there, but I think they did a really good job of graphics.
Agreed. Scores?
Yes.
Billy, go ahead.
I give it a 4.
I gave it a 4 as well.
Triple fours. I gave it a 4 too.
All right.
So before we get to the next subject, I just want to say thanks. You guys have some great comments coming in. We will do a Q&A at the end as long as we don't go too long. But just keep those comments rolling. It's good that you guys are part of this review, and your comments are going to be seen on screen. So anyway, thank you guys for that, and thanks for keeping it civil and talking about the different categories that we're talking about at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
So next up, sounds.
Yes,
John,
sounds.
why don't you go first? Since
Yeah,
Billy and I have gone.
I'll kick this one off.
No, he can go last all the time.
So, sounds in Dirt Rally. Overall, I think they're good. I don't think they're world-bending. I think they do a good job of telling you what the car is doing in terms of engine notes and also tire squeal. And as you see there with the Peugeot, a lot of tire squeal.
Hold on, John. Before you continue, did you crank it up?
No, I didn't. Let me stop myself for a second and crank up the volume here. So I think that little preview gives you a nice little taste of what the sounds are like. And something that we heard there that I kind of forgot of, some pretty nice wind sound there on that exterior camera. But yeah, I think that the sounds do a good job communicating what's happening. I think they lean more towards sounding like a real car than versus sounding electronic. They're not quite as deep and gnarly as, again, comparing to other titles out there. But yeah, overall, I think they're good. So, Darin?
Echo what you said as well, and I think they're pretty spot on. I think they, all the sounds across the board on all the cars, I think they sound great. Surface sounds, crashes, engine notes, I think everything is pretty spot on. So, that being said, I will hand it over to Billy.
Haha. Okay, so I think they're awesome. I think they did a fantastic job. Really, when I'm looking or when I'm listening to something like this, I want to feel like they're visceral. It makes you feel like the car's under load and it's just straining and struggling and feels like it's going to blow apart at any moment when you're just cranking the thing. So I thought they did a fantastic job with the engine notes. And really what impressed me were the Audi Quattros and the 405. I thought they did a fantastic job of capturing what those cars sound like when you are just dead in the throttle and they are just struggling for traction. So I thought they did a really good job. I'm also a stickler for sliders, level sliders. I've raced quite a while and I've played in bands, and so sometimes my hearing isn't that great. So level sliders are really important to me so I can turn some stuff down or turn some stuff up if I need it. And then like you guys said, I think the ambient noises are well done. The gravel hitting the bottom of the car, the crashes, all of that. So, yeah, I think they did a very, very good job.
So what score, Billy?
Yeah, what score do you give it?
I give it a 5.
5 here.
Oh, so that 5 for you, Darin?
Yep.
I gave it a 3.
A 3?
I gave it a 3.
Oh man.
I think they're good. I just I don't know. You could maybe talk me up to a 4. You couldn't talk me up to a 5 on this one because 5's getting near perfection, and I think, out there in the sim world these days, race room, iRacing, I think are quite a bit ahead of it. Now, I think this is quite a bit ahead of some other titles, but you're not going to get me to go 5 on this one.
Yeah, how dare you have a different opinion than me? I just felt like they were actually very comparable in most instances. Yeah, instances. Like I said, like those Quattros and some like WRX was a good example too. I think they're on par with Race Room. I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, I do too. And Billy brought up the environmental effects, the rocks hitting the undercarriage, stuff like that. The engine notes, I think, are incredible. And where you really can hear how awesome I think Dirt Rally sounds is in the replays. Like that, again, back to that video I did of the WRX in Germany, hearing the Doppler effect and that car screaming by, and like Billy was saying, just like the engine sounds, just like when you're really pushing it, and reaching for all the traction you can. I think they sound incredible. So there's no way you could talk me down from a 5, to be honest. But hey, John, you're entitled to your opinion. You think it's a 3? I think that's a little low, but I think they're great.
Well, then we averaged on 4, so.
Yes, let's go with 4.
I'm okay with that. Next up, online racing. Billy, you want to start with that?
Sure. Online, I thought they'd actually... I don't want to score this in a traditional sense, because Rally is a little different animal when it comes to online racing. I think having the leagues was a fantastic idea, where you can either join a league or you can create your own private league. You can set up your races. They also have, the DiRT Daily and weekly and monthly challenges. Those all keep it fresh, keep people interested and involved, which is what you got to do for one of these titles. I think the Rallycross was fine. It's public server kind of stuff, so don't go in there expecting anything great, but you do get good races, and I don't think it does anything terrible or awful with it. It's the norm. And then the only other thing I wish it did, and I'm not really knocking it for this, it's just a little thing, is I wish there was a way to do rallies at the same time as everybody else. So in other words, everybody ghosts into the rally, and you either run at the same time, like Rallycross Challenge 2, I think, did it, where everybody lined up at the same time and then you took off and everybody was ghosted. Or maybe once in a while they could host something where it was an actual rally where, you waited in line and took off. It'd take a little while, but if you go in expecting that, then I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, I just want... Before John
sorry.
goes really quick, I just wanted to comment on that. I really don't have anything else to say, because Billy pretty much stole my notes, even though he didn't steal my notes. But that was he echoed exactly what I was going to say. I just think what? I think ghosting would be a little, especially if you had, let's say, 10, 15 different drivers. I think that would get a little distracting. I like the idea of lining up one after the other. I think that would be really cool, and having to run at that exact time. I think that would be really neat, because Richard Bird's Rally actually had that with their multiplayer joining situation. But anyway, I echoed exactly what Billy said. And sorry to cut you off there, John. I just wanted to touch on what Billy was saying before I forgot.
Yeah, I mean, online racing, honestly, I haven't done a tremendous amount myself in DiRT Rally. I've kind of found myself, even though I do enjoy online racing a lot, I've kind of found myself just more staying offline, since a lot of times it's rally racing and just beating the clock. But have joined leagues like the ISR TV DiRT Rally League, which runs out of our forums, and that's a nice little league that running every week. Unfortunately, me and Darin haven't been able to make it as much as we did at the beginning. But yeah, I mean, overall I think it's good. I don't think it's too revolutionary, but I mean, I think it's nice that you can set the leagues up. I like that it's enclosed within the title. Kind of have that dashboard that opens up, keeps everything in the menus. That keeps it clean than having to go outside the game. So I think that's good. Yeah, the Rallycross is general open server Rallycross. So, that would be nice if that had a little more of a way to control that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's the online is a good effort. Scores?
Scores?
I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 5, and the only reason I gave it a 5 was because I felt the things that I was finding that I wished were a little better were kind of nitpicky, in my opinion. So I don't know how much more you could improve on it, because I was trying to look at where they were setting their goal rather than having a wish list. So I give it a 5.
I give it a 4.
All right.
4 it is.
Sounds like four wins it out. But yeah, I think I like what they did with the whole, and echoing Billy again, I like how they did the whole league thing integrated into the title. I thought that was really cool. So next up, What do we got next?
Next up is offline racing. So what it's like to jump into a race or do the career mode.
Why don't you start with that, John?
Okay, offline, I overall very impressed by. I think it just, I mean, for me, I only ran. I don't know what percentage. I didn't run a ton of career mode. Career mode I found to be okay. You know, it's pretty straightforward. Start off in a slower car. You know, work your way up. And so I mean, I don't think there was anything revolutionary going there. But I really did enjoy just jumping into quick races or rallies, that is. And that's really how I spent most of my time in Dirt Rally. And yeah, I mean, it's rally. I don't like I said earlier. I don't really necessarily have to go out and race people. You can. That's another element. But you're just racing the time and racing that bar on the left side of the screen and trying to get that all nice and green. And then showing a clip here of Rallycross. And I have to say, really impressed by the AI in Rallycross. Probably some of the better AI in sim racing in general. Like, I think they put up a really good fight, and they updated it sometime during the Steam Early Access cycle and made it more difficult. And yeah, I think they just did a really good job. I think they're really intuitive, and in terms of AI, which we've always discussed is probably the hardest thing you can do in a racing title, I think they did a really good job. Darin?
I agree. I agree with everything you said as well. I think it's got a cool career mode. You know, working your way up from the slower, older cars all the way up, you know, up the ladder. I agree 100% with that challenging AI. It's some of the best AI I've seen. They don't take you out every turn. You don't see big pileups of cars basically wondering which direction to go, which you'll see in some of the more current titles. And back to the career, there's a lot to keep you busy to keep going through your career. So I think they did a great job with it. Billy?
So out of the three of us, I'm probably the most offline or single player racer. So the career is good. I thought the progression was odd. I felt like you are getting these rally cars. Why are we upgrading them? They're already race-ready rally cars. Why am I grabbing a 205 Group B rally car and then upgrading it? I thought that was weird. I would have much preferred to start at the bottom with, like, the Mini Cooper and then worked my way up. So for me, the progression of it was really odd. It just doesn't make sense to me. Custom races are nice. You know, it's good so that if you don't have the car unlocked in career mode, you can just go and do a quick race in something else, grab any car available, which is a fantastic option for anybody, and just jump in a race. So I thought that was really good. I agree with the AI, runs really well. The only thing I found odd was during rallies, sometimes the AI rubber bands, so it doesn't seem to matter how fast you go. There's always one. It seems like there's always one that's like right on your tail, and then the rest of the pack follows it. And that's intermittent, but it's something that I did notice. So I'm curious to see if maybe there's a little bit of AI rubber banding in there on the actual rally parts. And then the other thing I thought of was, I know this is we want this to be simulation. I feel like the learning curve is really steep. I heard that from a lot of people. Then I always want to see choices. So it's not terrible if somebody needs that guiding line in a game, in my opinion. It's not popular amongst most sim racers, but I'm always looking at the bigger picture. I want this title I want the next one. And the way to get more people involved, I feel, is to give them the tools to help them go forward. Yes, you have ABS and you have traction control and that stuff, but I felt like the learning curve was really, really steep. I thought they could have, maybe there was a way to kind of help people get up to speed. And the car setups usually are terrible. But scores?
I gave it a 5.
I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 4.
4s have it. All right. So next up, we go to quality assurance.
Yes, quality assurance, a fancy way of saying, is it buggy? So I guess I'll start off, and I mean, I had a hard time really finding a lot of bugs. One place along the development process that was a little buggy was actually Finland when it was first released, and I did this test drive. And something that we forgot to mention earlier in sound, so I'll hit it now, is when Finland was first released, the co-driver was trying to kill you, and that was really annoying. But after that was released and there was complaints, it got fixed overall, and actually the co-driver is a pretty strong point of the game. But yeah, I found very little bugs and issues along the way. I mean, my biggest issue that drove me nuts was in the menu and using the mouse or the Dorito chip. It's like it would work, and then you would change some graphic settings and it would turn it off, and you have to go and turn it back on, and then you can use your mouse to go forward, but you can't go back, so you got to press back or escape, and it's just that was always kind of annoying to me. But in terms of playability of the game and driving, any bugs that did pop up during early development, I felt like they got squashed fairly quickly. So overall, pretty happy with the quality of the game. Let's go, Billy.
Yeah, the same thing about I like the Dorito chip. You must have been hungry. Yeah, I don't understand if, for the consoles, it's fine. You're still using a gamepad or even on the wheel. I think that works fine. But when you're on the PC, I really think you should have full mouse support, and it's just kind of odd that it doesn't. And then I did notice after, patch 1.1, watching the replays, there was some really odd. It looked like you went into warp drive. I mean, the sides would blur and it'd do this really weird thing. It was so bizarre looking. I'm watching replay going, whoa, what is going on with that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with graphics.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. It didn't do that before the 1.1 patch, though. I never noticed it before that, and then all of a sudden it was very apparent. So that was a little weird. And then the only other thing I had was when I went to fire it up this last time in preparation for the review, it went into windowed mode, and that was a bear to try to get out of windowed mode. For whatever reason, it went into windowed mode. I had to play with my graphical settings quite a bit. I've never really had another sim do that. It just went into windowed mode, and I couldn't get it out. So
fixed people that if that ever happens, if you just hit Alt-Enter on your keyboard, it should pop
didn't
right back.
Work.
Didn't really?
Did not work. Nope, it was locked in windowed mode. I had to back out every time and then go into my graphic. What had happened was it actually changed my graphical settings in my system for some reason, and then it wouldn't communicate, and so it was making these weird resolutions, and I'd have to bounce back and forth till I finally got them to talk to each other, and then all of a sudden it worked. So and there was other people that were complaining about that as well. When I looked it up, I was just not unique to myself. It's not, once it goes into windowed mode, it is very difficult to get it back out of windowed mode. So that could have been a little better. Everything else works just fine. I didn't find any other problems with it whatsoever. Darren?
I like that they did early access on this title, and that seems to be a trend that's happening in the industry, and I think it's a good way to go, because then you've got potentially hundreds of thousands, 1 million plus beta testers that are helping sort out all these bugs, and I think by them doing that on the PC for months, for a long time, I think that really helped iron out a lot of the bugs. So for the most part, when it was completed and delivered, especially on the console, they delivered a complete title. Now, I do have one complaint, and it's with me using the AccuForce wheel, Club Sport pedals, and then button boxes and all the peripherals that I have, the TH8A shifter and stuff. If I enter the game and hit anything on the keyboard to launch the game, I lose all of my controller configuration.
Yep.
So the workaround for that is you have to start the game with basically a button press on the wheel, and in my case, it's an AccuForce. And then you're fine. Once you're in the game, you can navigate. You can use the keyboard and the mouse and all that stuff. But that's my only real gripe, and I've gotten to the point where I've just gotten used to it, and it's a workaround that works for me. I've seen people on the AccuForce or the Sim Experience Owners Club forums that were struggling and could not get things to work. So I would like to see that in a patch. Maybe an F1 2016. I know they're totally different engines, game engines at this point, but I'd like to see that fixed to where you can start the game with, it doesn't matter what you press, whether you start it with a keyboard or whatever, to start advancing through the screens, that doesn't happen. So other than that, again, using the workaround, everything runs fine. So I think, again, that they delivered a pretty polished title. I really can't complain. They haven't been coming out with patches and updates every 2 weeks to address all the issues. So I think that early access really worked for them. So that being said, I gave them a 4.
And I gave them a 5.
And I gave them a 4.
4 it is.
4s have it. All right, now on to the meat and potatoes.
What you've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Force feedback, and physics. So first up, we got force feedback. And how about if I start with this one, guys?
Okay.
They added a lot of great tuning options for the first time in any Codemasters title. For the AccuForce, I just mentioned I use the AccuForce Sim Experience AccuForce wheel. I use game force feedback, and if you have an AccuForce, or maybe you've heard us talk about in the past, the AccuForce is powered by software called Sim Commander, and within Sim Commander, you can use what's called foundation feedback, which actually you can turn off the game's force feedback, and Sim Commander will take data from the game, or Sim, whatever you want to call it, and create force feedback effects. Dirt Rally is one of the few titles that I'm using only game force feedback, and it really shocks me because Codemasters hasn't been known for having great force feedback. But Sim Experience had got the Codemasters development team a wheel, and it feels incredible with just using the game force feedback. So, and it also feels great with the Thrustmaster T300 and TX. So there's my take on force feedback. John, or no, let's go Billy next.
Ooh, okay. Yes, I think that they did an excellent job with, especially in the beginning, like you said earlier, with the early access, really getting to the point where they could give us how much of what we needed in our wheels. So I ran the TX and the T300. They both performed really well. I thought it gave nice, strong feedback. The exception to this is the PS4. When I first did it, I thought it was just because I don't think that there's enough front-end feel in the rear-wheel drive and mid-engine cars on asphalt. And so when I drove the very first time, I thought that that was just kind of the characteristic. But the more I started playing the PS4, it is not strong. I heard they're making a patch. I haven't seen it yet, but it is very weak compared to the PC version. And I'm assuming, I believe you said in the Xbox One version, Darin, it was really, really good as well. So unfortunately, the PS4 is on the weak side. And like I said, I feel that on the asphalt, the rear-wheel drive and mid-engine cars don't have enough feeling in the front end. They don't relate what's going on very well. John?
Overall, I think the force feedback is good. Kind of going off what Darin was saying, I was on the Dirt Rally website today, and I kind of wish I would have grabbed it because it had the list of supported wheels and pedals, shifters, hardware in general, and it's a long list. And I think Codemasters should really be commended on out of the gate, and even during the whole that early access, such an awesome way to go. Adding support, the AccuForce was added along the way, and it's great to see all the hardware pretty much across the board supported. And going off what Billy was saying, going from the PC, Xbox One, I couldn't tell the difference. Going from T300, TX, it felt the same. They both overall felt good. I feel like it gave good strength and gave good road feedback. So Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a negative thing to say. I don't think it was, at least on the Thrustmasters, I didn't find it, really mind blowing. But I think overall it's just really solid force feedback, and they should be commended for that, and then also for the support, and also all the adjustments that you can do in game with the sliders, because that was also something else that developed during the early access. That started off very limited, and I think not even working at the beginning. So it was cool to see that progress, and yeah, I think at this point, version 1.1, force feedback's good. So with that said, I guess I'll lead off with my score. I gave Dirt Rally a 4 on force feedback.
I did as well. One thing I wanted to add too, and somebody mentioned this in chat, was, and this is only on the PC, is Steam Workshop, which is really cool.
Yes.
So I guess it's kind of an online. You can consider it an online feature, or you could add it to force feedback car setups. But you can share your settings. Speaking of which, my AccuForce settings have been shared in the Steam Workshop, and I think that's just another great aspect of this title. So you can get people's force feedback settings, because like John just mentioned, and we've been talking about, there's a lot of sliders and a lot of different things that you can adjust in the force feedback, and it's cool to get somebody else's settings, plug them into to your setup, and see how they feel. So I gave them a 5 actually, because I think, and again, I'm basing it mainly on the AccuForce and how well it transitioned to the Xbox. If I would have tried the PS4 version, I may have a different story, because like Billy's mentioning, that the force feedback's pretty weak on the PS4. But what I felt, and again, I'm really impressed with what they did. I think this is the best force feedback Codemasters has ever done on any of their titles. I think it was pretty good in Dirt 3, but I think they hit it out of the park with the force feedback and the ability to adjust so many things. Billy?
Yeah, the only reason I'm giving it a 4 and not a 5 is because of the PS4 version that I tried. On a PC, I'd say it's a 5. On the PlayStation 4, it's not as good. It'd be 3. You could probably sway me to a 4. So overall, I gave it a 4.
Cool.
Oh, and one
Fours
thing.
have it.
Yep, sounds like a 4. And one thing I do want to add, because I forgot to mention this, I also saw a comment in chat. For universal force feedback settings in Dirt Rally don't exist, because someone was asked, can you share your force feedback settings? And at least what I found, I spent a day just A-Bing every single setting, learning what every single slider did and adjusting, and I dialed in really sweet in like the I think it was in the Volkswagen Polo, and then I jumped into another car, felt like junk. When another
Yes.
car felt like junk, and I ended up just going back and pretty much running default more or less across the board with certain adjustments, but I could not dial in on a universal setup across the board. All the cars felt different, which it's interesting. I'm not going to knock it either way, but yeah, I couldn't come up with a universal force feedback setting.
Right.
Yeah, and like you said, just doing the defaults is probably the best universal setting. And then if you really want to spend some time, tweak it for that particular car and then save it. You can have a bunch of different presets, so you can save them, upload them to the Steam Workshop, and then load them for that particular car and track combo or car and stage combo. So now, are we done with force feedback? On to physics?
On to physics.
Dun dun dun.
Darren, like to start?
Sure. Just like I said, the force feedback was the best Codemasters to date. I'd say the same for the physics. The asphalt physics with some cars is a little off, it seems. Some, it feels great. Like I was talking about that Subaru, the WRX at Germany. I thought it felt awesome. Gravel and snow, I think, feel awesome. And then this is kind of a specific subject, but the data output for the motion is mostly there. Some effects aren't included in their data output, but most are there, and I think it feels incredible. So overall, I'm happily surprised at how good the physics are, and that this title definitely went more. I mean, I don't even think we could categorize this title as a simcade. I think this is definitely on the sim side of the scale. With Simcade being in the middle, arcade being on let's say the far left, and sim being on the far right. I'd say it's maybe a tick under the far right on sim side. So anyway,
I would agree.
I think they did a great job. I think the physics are, they're not perfect. Some cars, I think they are damn near perfect. Again, like that WRX, and some, like Billy, I don't know how the hell you drove that Pikes Peak, that hill climb car the way you did, man. That thing, maybe it's just because it's such a handful and it's on, on driving it on gravel, but that thing is, man, is it a nightmare to drive. And you just wheeled the hell out of that thing in that video you did. But anyway, I think they did a great job. John?
Oh, okay.
Billy?
I'll go ahead.
John? Billy?
I'll go next once I click the right button here.
Who's on first?
Yeah. So physics, like a lot of things overall, very positive. I think gravel, dirt feel very good. I think it's very believable. My hang-up is asphalt. That's really where my hang-up's at. I do not care for how the cars drive on asphalt. They just don't feel connected to. They just don't feel connected to the ground. They feel really floaty, and yeah, you're just kind of floating it around out there when you're on asphalt. So, yeah, that's really my big negative in the physics. Going from car to car, I think across the board they're pretty good. I will say the Mini Cooper. I drove that at hell in the Rallycross, and I don't know if that was partly a combination of the asphalt surface, but that thing just felt odd. It felt all-wheel drive. I don't think it's an all-wheel drive car. I'm pretty sure it's a front-wheel drive traditional Mini. But yeah, felt really odd. Didn't really care for it. Like Darin mentioned, the hill climb cars also a handful, and I think a lot of that is compounded by asphalt. But then you look at, like me and Darin both mentioned, the early 2000 Subaru WRX. I think that thing's a sweetheart. I think some of the classic cars are awesome. I think they got a 91 BMW 3 Series or M3 that I think is just a really fun car to drive. So, yeah, and going away from just wheel physics, but even talking about transmission models and stuff like that, I think that's done really well. What I don't care for too much, and is the handbrake is a little. It's a little touchy for me. I feel like now part of that I think is using the TH8A shifter, which is kind of like a workaround for a handbrake. But I felt like other titles like Sebastian Loeb Rally, I had an easier time using the handbrake than using in Dirt Rally, where I look at it and all of a sudden the car's swapping ends on me. So, but besides a couple of those things, which are getting, like Darin was saying, I grade this on a sim scale. So I'm definitely grading it at the hard end. So it might sound like I'm beating up a little bit, but overall I think the physics are good. Billy?
So I'll first agree that this is definitely more sim than even close to the Simcade side. I agree with you guys. It's maybe not the best, but it's definitely well into the sim side of stuff. I just have a few notes here. Snow. I thought the snow, Pikes Peak, dirt, and then the gravel stages, and Germany. I felt those tracks did really well with the simulating the surface for the physics. Monaco's okay, and the one that is the worst between all the hill climb cars, as far as surface goes, is the asphalt of Pikes Peak hill climb. It is, whatever happens when those cars get on that surface, it is awful. It is terrible. And then also with that same vein in mind, the Rallycross Supers, I think they slide way too much. There's no sense of side bite in them. I know those things are supposed to slide and get sideways, but there becomes a point where, those on-screen cues give you that rollover and that dig, and the car takes a set, and you just nail the throttle and it pulls through the turn. You kind of have this float feeling when you get the thing crossed up and then point the right direction because four-wheel drive, you don't steer into the slide, you point the direction you want to go. It just doesn't bite well at all. And the 208, which I believe is Sebastian's car, the Pikes Peak car, that, unfortunately, you can't test any of the other cars on any other stages. So all I have to go on is the 208 on that asphalt stage in Pikes Peak is just terrible. It is so bad. It acts like there's no downforce. It drifts. You should be able to just drive that thing all the way in the turn. The downforce should take over, and it doesn't. But not to be too negative here. I really, really like I said earlier, I thought they did a really good job with the specifically the Alpine, the Opel, the 205 Group B, and all the 2010 cars. I thought those felt perfect. I thought they did a good job of relaying the information and giving you that sensation of what the car's doing going around the track. And I also felt that they did a good job with the rain as far as physics go. It's slick enough, but it doesn't slide too much. These are four-wheel drive cars. That's where they're supposed to excel. And I think they did a really good job with that as well. So that's kind of where I ended up with it.
Okay. So, Billy, what score did you give it?
I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 4.
And I gave it a 4.
4 it is.
And I agree with a lot of the things Billy was saying. And one thing I wanted to add to the Pikes Peak and just the title overall, I would have liked to have been able to take any one of the other cars onto the hill climb. Instead of, what is it, 3 cars that you can run on the hill climb?
Depends on which stage you're running. If you're running the all dirt, then or the mixed, it's only the 3 historic, what they're calling historic cars. The Sebastian model only gets to run on the all asphalt version, and that's it.
Yeah, so I would have liked to have, because I love hill climb and I love Pikes Peak, but those cars are, man, shit's happening really fast. And I would have liked to have, I would have loved to have taken that WRX up Pikes Peak.
I agree.
So, anyway, yeah, I think back to what we were just talking about, though. I think for the most part they did a great job. And this is kind of the case with any title on the market. There's some cars that feel great, and some feel maybe mediocre. And then there's some, a few or a handful that feel like garbage. It must be really difficult for any developer to get every single car to feel exactly right. And, Billy, you have the most racing experience out of the 3 of us, so you probably have a better idea of what a true race car feels like, especially driving a sprint car. But, I think we use our, what experience we do have and base it on what we see in real life and videos we see in real life. But anyway, kind of rambling here. But yeah, I think they did a good job. So overall,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, well, that's the thing, right, is when we play these sims, we have a simulated reality, and that is based upon the other past experiences we've had in other titles. So the only advantage I really have is I've had some real world racing experience. I don't think that's necessarily outweighs anything else because it's all based off of our own experiences. I just... I try to look at each car the way I think, because I've never driven a hill climb, car. I can only guess. And when, like, in the dirt sections with the historic cars, they felt what I thought was correct. Like, it gave me that sense of, man, I smashed the throttle and I put that thing into the turn. That 405, man, that thing just would go right around the turn. You had to drive it right, but it would give you that sense of traction. So you felt like you were a part of the car. And that's when you talk to a race car driver, there's when you're beginning and then you kind of make this transition where all of a sudden you're not just in the car and the car is just not taking you around the track and you're reacting to it. All of a sudden you feel like you're a part of the car. And so that's what I end up looking for in these titles. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Sounds good, Billy. So we gave it a 4. That's what our average came to, correct?
Yes.
And why don't we go to some final thoughts? John, why don't you take the lead there?
Yeah, so final thoughts on Dirt Rally, PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. Really, really solid, good effort from Codemasters. Honestly, for me, probably the first Rally title that I really got into. It's Rally's newer to me. I've always kind of stuck to the circuit type racing, and I found it just really enjoyable. And we nitpick some things here and there, but I think it does a good job bringing you back. I think it would bring me back a little more if we had some more new tracks. I think that'd be good. But yeah, I just think when it comes to the hardware support and force feedback and overall physics and overall graphics and performance and variety of cars and different, not just rally but rallycross, hill climb, I think when you combine that all together, you just result in a really solid title. And I think that's what our scores are showing here. So Billy.
Yeah, I think they did an excellent job. I think it's one of the best console titles, really. Even though it's just, I don't want to put that caveat in there, just a rally game. It's a racing game. It's a driving game, sim. So they just did a really good job overall, not just the console, but I think they did a good job capturing what it feels like to pilot these cars around these really narrow stages and like the Pikes Peak and the Rallycross. Overall, they did a really good job of capturing how it is to possibly run these machines around those courses. So yeah, I echo everything else that you said. So Darin?
I was happily surprised when they announced this title, because everybody was waiting for a Dirt 4. And the funny thing is, when you first had early access, I think one of the documents folders was labeled Dirt 4. But everybody was waiting for Dirt 4 to come out, and then they just out of the blue, they announced Dirt Rally Early Access and announced that it was going to be, they were going to be going away from what they had done in Dirt, the previous Dirt series, and make it more on the hardcore side. And I think myself and the overall community couldn't have been happier. So I'm really pleased with the direction that they took this title. I echo what Billy said about, I would say that this is probably the best racing title on the consoles right now. I think it's better than, as far as the physics goes, force feedback, graphics. I mean, overall, on the sim scale, it's probably the hardest core sim on the console. And maybe Project Cars is probably right up there too. But I mean, if you think of titles like Forza or Gran Turismo, Sebastian Loeb's pretty much on the sim side too. But anyway, I just think they did an awesome job. And in closing, I would say that if you haven't got this title yet and you want to do some great off-road, rally-style, rallycross, hill climb stuff, this is a must-have for your gaming sim racing library, whether it's PC or console.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
What was our overall final score, John? You got that graphic for us?
I do. Let me pull it up here. And Dirt Rally earned 4 out of 5 stars from us. And this is a newer star rating that is already appeared on our website under the car racing games section at isrtv.com. Right now, you might notice the Dirt Rally scores are different from what we just gave it, because those are just my scores, and now we're gonna bring in all 3 of our scores and go through a lot more titles and yeah, kind of go back to a little bit of a scoring system, because why not? It's kind of a quick and easy way for you guys to come and see what we think, especially in the specific key categories that matter to you.
Yeah, I think this whole this live interview, from my perspective, I'm going to watch that probably the whole thing, see how it came out, but it seemed to come out pretty good. I love the comments rolling as we were going through. Lots of great comments talking about the different categories. Speaking of which, start putting some questions in there for myself, Billy, or John. If you have any questions for us, or you want us to talk about something in particular about our review or the title, put it in the comments now. But yeah, John also mentioned going to our car racing games page, where you'll be able to see our scores there again, and a link to, if you click on that particular title, Dirt Rally, it'll take you to our Dirt Rally page. It has a bunch of our driving videos and stuff. So that being said, let me see if we have any questions. Nothing yet.
I want to add, sorry, I want to add real quick. Just thanks, to the developers. I think that, especially on the U.S. side, I don't think people think that it's as popular over here, which it probably isn't. But I've always been a rally fan. I love rally games, and I was always jealous when, Europe or whatever we get one, and I'd be like, oh, I want that. So. I really appreciate the time and effort that the developers put into at Codemasters at putting this out. So I just wanted to say thanks to them for actually, making a title happen like this. I think it's really, really good.
Yes, I mean the Steam Early Access, like Darin said earlier, was key. I mean that was big, and it was cool to see development. And I mean I give. I definitely give kudos to Codemasters for saying, let's put this in the hands of the fans. I mean, who knows? It might have still been a solid title at the end if they didn't do Steam Early Access. It does seem like they have a pretty good handle and grasp on what to do and rally titles and trying to push towards realism. But still, I mean, I have to imagine that having the fans involved did help. And they did seem to do a really good job of when the fans said jump, they said how high. I mean, things got implemented. And they stayed on schedule. There was no delays. They said when it was announced day one, they gave a schedule for updates every month. It was going to come out in December, and it came out in December. And then when it came out on Steam in December, version 1.0, they said it'll be out April 5th on the consoles, and it was released on April 5th. So a lot that can be commended in 2016 when we don't see a lot of that activity anymore out of any developer.
Absolutely.
So let's get to some questions and answers, or questions, and then we'll give you the answers. There's a quick one I'm going to just answer really quick. Narzugon. Oops, I might have muted myself there briefly. Asks, is there an ISR TV Dirt Rally League for the Xbox? No, there isn't currently. If you want to start one, let us know. We'll, you're more than welcome to post on our forums and set one up. I think that'd be a great idea. But no, currently there is not one. Next one from Vlad. We'll just say Vlad. Would you love tighter or narrower tracks, more technical?
For me, I think they're difficult enough. I mean, I'm happy with the width. I think if it got any more narrower, then I would be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I agree.
I would agree. Yeah.
I just like to see more.
Yes, more.
And necessarily,
DLC, take my money.
Yeah, right. Necessarily, I don't think that having some wider sections every once in a while would hurt either. Maybe at the beginning you'd have some little wider stages. Like I said, I'm not trying to think of myself or like super experienced sim racers. I'm always thinking of how do you get that new person that maybe just picked up the title for the first time that maybe hasn't had a lot of experience. How do you kind of get them so where you want them to get at that competitive level later on down the line? So maybe just a little wider at the beginning, or maybe just certain sections.
I agree. From Singula, I've been a road sim racer mainly, but I've always been interested in rally stuff. Can I approach Dirt Rally as a simulator? Haven't looked into it yet. Yeah, you missed. We were just talking about this, but yeah, absolutely. I would say that you can.
Yeah, it's a sim, and I was, like I said a little earlier, I was there with you. This is really my first rally title, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Not fast at the beginning. And there was another question someone asked, is there like one thing that you can recommend to really chop down on your stage time? I believe that was the question. Mastering that handbrake, those handbrake corners, they are deal makers right there. You can really take a lot of time off by being good on the handbrake and getting through. You can really hustle through a corner if you do it right. Unfortunately, a lot of times I don't do it right. I swing out too wide, and I lose momentum, and it's a mess. But that's where you can really make some time up. But the more I play, the more I get comfortable with it. But yeah, no, I think you shouldn't be apprehensive about jumping in the dirt rally. I really don't think you have anything to lose.
Yep.
Yeah, to expand upon that real quick, I don't think that if you're coming from, road racing on the sim side, I think it's still an excellent title to play with. It teaches you a different style of car control that you can actually apply to road racing when you get in a situation where the car starts to get around on you. And then as far as, I think, John, you mentioned something about what's the one thing to kind of help improve your times. There's really no one thing. I would say that you typically go too fast. When I watch people run this dirt rally for the first time, they're typically trying to enter way too fast, and they're not looking ahead. It's real easy to kind of look right in front of you, and especially in rally, you can't see. If you go to Wales, you can't see around those trees. So you really need to just keep looking as far ahead as you can and really, be reactive. But you typically are driving in too deep, back your turns up a little bit, and then slowly work your way forward. That's probably the biggest thing.
Pay close attention to your co-pilot and practice. I mean, you got to run. You may need to run a particular stage multiple times before you really start to nail it. Again, going back to that rear traction loss video I did in Germany, it was a long stage, and for the most part there was a lot of fast sections, so it wasn't that difficult. But then again, on the flip side, there was a lot of hairpins, a lot of handbrake turns that I really needed to figure out how to master and how to approach them. And it's just the old saying, practice makes perfect, and I think that really applies here, and just learning particular stages. The shorter ones are obviously going to be easier than the longer ones.
Yes.
Here, I had a great question, and now...
Quickly here, someone also saying you don't necessarily use the handbrake. Clutch kick, that's another thing that was added during development.
Yes.
That again, not very good at, and definitely could use some practice, but very cool that it's in there.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, those turbos start lagging. You gotta use it.
Yeah, and you can even run... actually, I like the full clutch mode in Dirt Rally too. I think that the clutch is modeled really well, so you'll miss shifts, but you don't even have to run in the full clutch mode, and you can enable clutch kick, which really can aid in getting around some of those corners. So this one probably is going to be directed at me because I'm the only one that's tried the PC version of Richard Burns Rally. Correct, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So Krampus asks, how do you think Dirt Rally compares to Richard Burns Rally to real life? Well, I can't compare to real life. I have done some off-road driving, but never at this level, not even close to this level. So I really can't compare that. But I'd say it really compares to Dirt Rally. Graphically, it blows compares to Richard Burns Rally. Graphically, it blows Richard Burns Rally away. Physics and force feedback, I'd say it's on par. I'd say across the board in Richard Burns Rally, I think it's a little more realistic as far as the different surfaces go. But I think this is a pretty good successor to Richard Burns Rally. Richard Burns Rally has been around since like 2004 and has really held claim to the top rally sim on the market. And you got to get all the mods, the RSRBR website, getting all the mods there and using their multiplayer matching service. But anyway, I think they did a great job. And of the three current rally titles, I would lean towards this one. Sebastian Loeb, I didn't like it on the PC, but I did like it on the PS4. WRC5, I honestly haven't had enough time in it, but from what I've read and from the time I do have in it, I would lean. I've had a lot more fun in Dirt Rally than the other two titles. What do you guys think about how they compare to the other two titles?
Well, for me, I agree with what you said on the console. Sebastian Loeb was surprisingly pretty good, and I do think there are some categories where Sebastian Loeb is better. I think really just the transition from different materials, go from gravel to dirt to tarmac. I think they actually maybe did a little better than Dirt Rally, especially the tarmac's definitely better. But yeah, I mean, I think overall in a lot of the other different categories, Dirt Rally is just as good or even a little better. So yeah, I think Dirt Rally I give it the nod at the top for PC definitely, and but yeah, console I give it a little edge over Sebastian Loeb, and yeah, WRC5 I didn't think much about.
Billy, what do you think?
It just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for something with a lot of content, and not that Dirt doesn't have a good amount of content, but Sebastian Loeb by far really has a wide breadth of cars and their career mode. I really like the career mode in that game. But if, and then WRC5 is kind of a weird thing to compare because WRC5 is only supposed to be the WRC series. So that kind of, to me, sits on its own island. If we're talking about the driving experience itself, I just think that overall, Dirt Rally is probably a little better experience than like Sebastian Loeb. Sebastian Loeb has some good stuff with the driving aspects, and then there's some stuff that's a little off. I mean, Dirt's kind of the same way. So I feel more comfortable with Dirt Rally. But there are times where Sebastian Loeb runs really well, and actually WRC5 isn't all that bad after they did all those patch updates. Dollar for dollar, I probably would say Dirt Rally.
I couldn't even run WRC5 on my PC, so I'm curious after all the patches if they've given us the ability to run it with multiple controllers, because I'm not gonna, I want to run it with the AccuForce, and I want to run with my Club Sport pedals, so I don't know if they've actually fixed that. So I think that's going to wrap it up. We don't really have any more questions. Not as many questions. We do? Oh, you got some more?
Well, I did see one well earlier that I wanted to touch on. Someone asked about handbrakes for the Xbox One. And I don't know this answer for all the handbrakes, but I know for us, we used a TH8A shifter, and what do we do? We just pushed it in where it registered a click, and that was our handbrake, right? That's how we ran it.
Yep.
So it wasn't analog mode like you can do on the PC where it's progressive. It was more, it's on. But to be fair, it didn't really, like I said with the touchy handbrake, it didn't really feel much different. I couldn't really feel too much of a difference. It was, I felt like it was about the same. So that is kind of one workaround for a handbrake on the
for the Xbox. You could do that for the Xbox One?
Yes.
I was under the impression that you couldn't because it has to be plugged into the base.
You couldn't
run analog.
No, my understanding was if you put it in sequential and then hooked it up to the base, because it won't accept it in the USB, so you have to hook it up to the base. And when you did that, then it just put it in sequential mode, because then it just took away the paddle shifters from you.
No, I think you're right, Billy. I think he's right, John. I think we were running with a button on the Xbox One. We have to go back and watch that video. I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it is, because I know on the PS4 the only way you can do it is you take it USB and actually plug it into the PS4, and then, like John was saying, then that handbrake works, and it actually works really well. But as far as I know on the Xbox One, you can without modding anything. There is nothing that's plug and play. Yes.
Slap Train do a mod?
Yes.
Where he added some kind of I don't think it's analog. I still think it's just a button push.
I'm not sure. I just know that yes, he does. He does have a modded TX base, as far as I understand, and it does allow him to use an actual handbrake. How analog or digital it is, I don't know. But as far as I know, like I said, you can't. Without modding anything, you can't use anything else for an actual handbrake. It's only the wheel buttons.
It'll be a cool mod is tapping into the clutch and using that analog input. People are talking about using the clutch as your handbrake, because you can do that as well, and I've done that in the past. But a mod that basically plugged into the circuit board And I don't think if it's I don't know if it's probably hardwired though, so that'd be kind of tough. But that would be kind of neat because then you could use that analog clutch axis for a handbrake. I'd like to just see somebody come out with a handbrake.
Right.
I think the Fanatic handbrake, when you plug it into the pedals, when you plug it into the clutch port pedal, because there's a port for it, I think it works on the console, but I'm not positive. So, you guys have any more questions? Did you see any more questions that we should answer before we wrap it up here?
Nope. I think we're at a good point to wrap this up.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, who's going to wrap us up?
I'll take us out since I got all the ones and twos here. So, thank you guys for watching our first ever live review of Dirt Rally. I think it turned out pretty well. And again, thank you guys in chat for staying on topic and again adding to the show. That's what we were hoping for. So
yes, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you'd like to give us a thumbs up, we'd much appreciate it.
Yep. So for Billy Strange, Darin Ganji, I'm John Sable. Thanks for watching Inside Sim Racing. See you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.